Welcome to Purple Coach Conversations with Anne and myself, Tanya. Our goal is to normalize, educate, and inspire conversations around diversity and inclusion. We are both coaches, mothers, and entrepreneurs. We are not diversity experts, but we aim to have conversations with people that will have something interesting and unique to say about their journey and experiences in diversity and inclusion.
Well, today I'm really excited. Tanya and myself are really excited to be joined by Noreen, and this is a bit of a special one for me. So I reached out to Noreen through LinkedIn, and the reason I was really drawn to her is because of her work around diversity, inclusion, and especially how she helps women to become more independent, to become more educated on how to run their own businesses. And I'll let Maureen talk a little bit more about that. But so let me officially introduce her. Maureen Makosewe is the MD of Radical Leap Group, advisor to CEOs, board members, and governments. She's also an angel investor and specializes in tech entrepreneurship. Noreen, thank you so much for joining us today. I will let you share a little bit more about what you do and specifically around how you help empower women in being able to be financially independent. And I'm going to keep quiet now and let you speak, Noreen. Over to you.
Tanya and Anne, thank you so much. I am honored to be part of this conversation today with you both. Thank you for inviting me. I'm Noreen Makosewe, like Anne has shared. I'm the managing director of the Radical Leap Group based in UK and now operating also in Africa. And I'm also the founder of an initiative called Female Founders Africa that was formed as an offshoot of the Radical Leap Group. We identified through our consulting work that women-owned businesses, particularly in the continent of Africa, really overlooked in the area of financing, particularly. But as we consult for women, we have an understanding of the challenges women face as business owners, where they are wearing many hats. They're wearing mom, they have dependents like old parents or sick people that depend on them. They have to look after themselves, their mental health, and then have to grow businesses that are very profitable. And so as a consultancy, we identified that the frameworks we were using for consulting for businesses in general were not particularly favorable for women because we had to take into account all the different nuances of what they go through. And we developed the Female Founders Africa initiative that's focused on building businesses for women-owned businesses that are bankable. And we are really excited about the possibility of making a bigger impact than we have so far. So thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to sharing my journey with you.
Thank you so much for being with us, Noreen. I can hear a little echo, so we might have to check on that if it's coming from my side. But I wanted to bounce back on what you just said and the wonderful things that you do for those ladies, and maybe give some specific examples around how you concretely help them in both places, whether it's in London or in Nairobi, how you've helped them, and if you have some examples that you want to share with us.
Thanks, Tanya. So this conversation for me is deeply personal. I am Kenyan, born and brought up, moved to the UK when I was 17, pretty much grew up my youth life in the UK, worked in corporate UK, and built my consultancy whilst working a full-time corporate job. So I'm African female, and Africa is quite diverse. So I won't use general statements, but I'm going to use the context of my experience. I was brought up in a family that was okay. My parents did well for themselves. I never lacked anything. School fees was always paid for. All our needs were met. I moved to the UK when I was 17, and whilst studying, I think it was my first year in university, my father passed away. And in that season of transition, like most people go through this transition, when you've suffered bereavement, you sit and think about life. And I thought about my life, and I decided to chart a different course. I was doing a technology program at university, and I deferred it so that I could work full-time. The context of my family, my father was like the bedrock of the family. So when he passed away, there was a lot of shifts in the family. And that meant that working full-time became necessary so that I could contribute to the education of my siblings and myself. So at that age, I was looking after myself in the UK, but also supporting my siblings, some of my siblings, not all, who are also at university. So my father passed away at a very defining season in the lives of my siblings. In my culture, unfortunately, when your father passes away, as a female, in my experience, you're not considered priority. So in that season, myself and my female siblings, and also my male, but mostly I focus on the female because we had a slightly different experience than our brothers. It was difficult for them to go to school, so we had to support ourselves. So my context is, from the age of 17 until now, I have relied on myself. My female siblings have also relied on themselves, and we supported each other until they've graduated and worked, and they're now self-sufficient in their own lives. That's a context of my experience. So I was blessed in the sense that I had a corporate job in the UK, was running a business, and was able to support myself and also to support some of my siblings as they went to school. Now, in the context of entrepreneurship, I recognize some of the biases that women-owned businesses, particularly on the continent, experience. It's not all on the continent, because there's women in diaspora, women in the UK, US, Europe, other parts of the world, who experience these biases that mean that they are disadvantaged in some way when it comes to growing really profitable businesses. So that was the basis of my setting up of the Female Founders Africa Initiative. Because I had the experience of consulting, I was able to identify a gap where I could add value to women-owned businesses, but add value from the context of understanding that some of these women are going through really tough seasons in their lives. I can give examples without naming names. We've worked with women who are building profitable businesses, but are going through gender-based violence. We have women who have been successful in their own right, but because of different circumstances, their lives are under threat because their ex-partners want to harm them and their children. So when it comes to consulting and sourcing financing for these businesses, we cannot treat them in the same way that we treat businesses that are owned by their male counterparts. So there's a level of understanding cultural context, but also understanding some of the things that women go through. So as well as consulting, we have to look after, please forgive, there's a train going by, so if it's noisy, that's what it is. So in the context of consulting, we have to be mindful that we are working with women at different stages of their lives. We're working with women who've gone through divorce. We're working with women who are trying to survive and stay alive whilst building successful businesses. We're working with women who are going through perimenopause, menopause itself. We're working with women who are going through mental health issues. So that is the reason why Female Founders Africa exists. But the aim of it is to empower women to create wealth, because there seems to be a connection between being self-reliant and relying on people who are not capable of supporting these women in a safe way. So it's a deeply personal mission for me. And I've got now people who feel the same way, and we're building an initiative and hoping to really make a bigger impact across the continent.
because unlike, I think, a lot of other organizations, I feel like your organizations and your work there in the African continent is taking into account something that perhaps is not a problem, quote unquote, in Europe, for example, or when you're working from your London offices and looking at these women trying to, or not trying to, but helping them, and these women who are trying to build financial freedom for themselves, who are very capable of doing so through their intelligence, their capability, their hard work, but then being faced with another problem that is perhaps not so on the forefront in other continents. And you mentioned things like the abuse, the other dependents as well, that are very, what's dependent on this woman as well. And I know in the past, we've talked about how you're not just helping them with the business acumen and the angel investments and the consultancy, but also helping them or getting them to help them understand how to navigate the success that they've now come into with all these other burdens that they have. So I guess to repeat my initial question is, how are you handling that amount of pressure? Because what you're already doing is quite a lot on your plate. How are you then dealing with all these other aspects that is very unique to what you're doing and how you're helping them, this particular women, especially in the African continent?
Thanks for the question. So there is, it's a mixed bag. There is women who are okay, the women who are, let me say, I'll say it carefully, it's not derogatory to anyone. They're living a normal life, you know, their challenges are normal across the board, across different continents. But then there's also the cross-section of women who have got very special circumstances that cannot be ignored when it comes to wealth creation, wealth building, and just helping them come to a position where they're able to support themselves in the way that they dream and the communities that they're in, whether it's their families, their children, or their local community. When I first started out, I'll be honest and say, I saw the challenges, but I did not anticipate the weightiness of these challenges. So I'll give an example without naming names, and some of these women have permitted me to tell their stories. I'm working with a woman-owned business, and we're trying to raise capital for her business because she is producing. She's in the agricultural sector. She's producing to export to different markets. She's come out of a violent situation in her home, and she needs to protect herself and her children. But the circumstance is so bad that she's now being hounded by her ex. And so she's trying to raise capital, but she's also trying to stay alive. So when it comes to a situation like that, if the woman says to myself and to the people that I'm working with, who I now have a team. Before it was a one-man band, or let me say one-man show, where I thought, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to do this. There's a problem in Ghana. There's a problem in Kenya. There's a problem. I'm going to create a platform that's going to solve these problems. But once you get into the pool and you realize that the problem is so massive that you can't do it on your own, I had to get people to support who are aligned in vision and who have a similar desire to make an impact. And so when a woman comes to you with a problem to say that I need you to help me with my business, but my priority now is my safety, I'm going to disappear for a certain length of time. Or a woman says to you that I've been kicked out of my home, I need a shelter. I'm the consultant, but then I can't say, okay, you figure it out, and then when you're ready, you can call me. I can't do that. So there was a need to be able to provide the wellness solution for these women, where there's an inner wellness conversation. Are you okay? How are you doing? How are your children? Do you have food? Are you safe where you are? Okay, then we can carry on working. There's a need to do those things that are not paid for. These are human solutions, human problems that override any business that we want to build together, or however much wealth we want to create together. So how do I handle it? I have a support system now. Before I didn't so much, but now I have a support system. I have people who feel the same way about supporting women-owned businesses. And we look after ourselves emotionally and mentally so that we can also look after them, because some of these stories are heartbreaking. And some of these stories really eat at your spirit if you realize that, you know, somebody died in the process of just trying to create the life that you wanted to create. So there's those really deep conversations that even in the investment space, these are conversations that I'm having, but they're not easily received because they're not common in, say, other parts of the world. So even with angel investing or venture capital, when we're emphasizing the need for investing in the wellness of the person that you're investing money in so that they can create wealth for you, these are conversations that are still, for us, not front and center. And I feel like they need to be. And that's something that we're really working to push, to make sure that with venture capital or with angel investing, as well as investing in the business, we need to remember to look after the people who you're giving money to in a very intentional way.
That's so powerful what you're saying. And it's true that we tend to forget that, you know, when people come and they talk about their businesses, they don't necessarily put their lives in front of you. But it sounds like in this instance, you just cannot separate them, and you have to be there along the way and kind of look at the person as a whole with the baggage and how you can help them. And of course, you know, as a coach myself, and I'm sure Anne, you might have felt the same way, you know, like these ideas of how you keep yourself, your client safe, how you create those boundaries, you know, what is your responsibility here? And I'm sure that the lines here are even more grayer because you get very involved and it's about the relationship and everything. And like you said, and I'm glad to hear that you have a team that is helping you and supporting you along the way. And I want to hear more about, you know, how you've built that team and you know, what does it look like today?
Thanks, Tanya. So the team started organically because we were having conversations. So these are also women in their own ecosystems who are supporting business owners. And so when we began to have these conversations around the wellness of these women, or just, you know, somebody reaches out to you and says, I have a woman in my network and they need capital, they need an investor, can you help? That is a core part of the business that we do at the Radical Leap Group, which is focused on business transformation, digital transformation, and market expansion. So the conversation around bridging them with the financing they need, that is normal for us. But then when we begin to dig into the circumstances surrounding the structure of the business, who owns what, and then the stories begin to come out that actually with this woman, you need to be aware that they have just come out of a violent situation, or they're trying to stay safe from a situation that is potentially harmful for them or their children, or they're recovering from financial loss, or they're coming out of a space where they've suffered mental health. So these conversations, mental health challenges. So these are conversations that are organic. They started organically. And because I felt, okay, the women in your network need support, we need some support with the women in our network, what can we do together? So based on those conversations, we saw synergies, and we decided to align in the areas of, one, our strengths and our expertise. So if somebody needs capital, and that capital is going to help them accelerate the growth of their business, which is then going to be the money that they need, or the financing that they need to grow a business and be self-sustaining, then we accelerate that because they're interlinked. Like you said, you can't separate the person from the business. the leader in the business is, if the leader is not well, the business is not going to be well. We strongly believe that. And even with the conversations Anne and I have had offline, there's things that Anne does, especially in the area of relationships, that is not a core part of what we do as a business, but they're important. So Anne and I have had conversations around supporting women in the area of nurturing relationships that are healthy, looking after themselves, inner well-being, having communication that is healthy for where they are and where they want to go. So it is those types of conversations and these types of relationships where we are able to tap into a wider pool of people who have shared value in making sure that another human being is okay. And there is so much work to do, in all honesty, that we can't do it all ourselves. So nurturing these types of partnerships is important for us. People like Anne, people like yourself, who are coaches, who specialize in a particular area. If a woman needs something, I can look through my phone book and say, I know who they need to talk to. They need to talk to Anne, or they need to talk to someone else, or they need to talk to Renee, but there's always someone. And having that database and network and agreements in place means that in a situation like that, we have a trusted relationship, and I can call my lawyer and say, I'm sending someone to you. This is their circumstance, handle it. And that is how we have built the team around the women that we work with.
About the work that you do on several occasions. We had a chance to have a lovely coffee when I was in Nairobi and meet in person. And as you were speaking as well, I think one thing that continues to stand out for me is how you have incorporated all these different aspects of support for these women. And I think it's something I mentioned as well in my last question. And you say that you've grown it all organically. What is the future for Radical Leap Group? What is where would you like to go? What's the bigger vision? And for the listeners that are listening in and would like to get involved, would like to contribute in some way, tell us how they can do that. So tell us about your vision for the future and how other people can get involved and contribute. So I think it's an absolutely amazing amount of work that you're doing.
Thanks, Anne. So the Radical Leap Group has a core mandate, which is strategy, technology, market expansion. So like I mentioned earlier, business transformation, digital transformation, market expansion. And then Female Founders Africa is an offshoot of that, which we're now setting up as a completely separate entity so that it can focus purely on the agenda for furthering, or let me say, growing women-owned businesses that are high value and high impact on the continent. So what the future looks like or let me say, what I envision the future to look like, the Radical Leap Group will continue to grow. We have in this year alone, for example, developed partnerships that understand that even though we are in this very technical space of strategy, technology, there's also a human-centered element to our work, which is impact, particularly for African female founders. Not that we don't want to work with other women in other parts of the continent, but there is a personal story connected to Female Founders Africa. And where Female Founders Africa is going, we're in the process of setting up a fund. And this is an angel fund that is going to be self-sustaining and to finance women-owned businesses on the continent and bring them to a point where they can also become investors in other women-owned businesses. So what the future looks like for, well, let me say my ideal. I mean, if somebody gave me a blank check and said, Noreen, how much do you need? And they told me that I can do whatever I want. What I would really like is a space for women-owned businesses, a hub where women who want to grow businesses can come, and they're looked after in themselves. They're well mentally, spiritually, emotionally, but there's also a space for their children to learn. There's a space where they can grow their businesses, they can innovate, They can get the business support that they need, and they can get the financing that they need. If a woman wants a co-working space and she needs a creche, my dream, alongside a couple of women that I've been working with, is to have a space where a woman can come and put a bassinet next to her and be in a co-working space that is not her home if she wants. A space where she can come and leave her children, but shop in the same space, or leave her children and they're able to learn and they're safe. And the children can learn technology skills, etc. Just support the female founder with all the different nuances that, you know, we bring to life as women. She can get her nails done and go straight back to work within the same space. So my desire, my dream is to have this space built, whether it's a small city or a big little city for women. I'd really love that. But the future looks like creating an ecosystem for women that is self-sustaining, and then where these female founders on the continent do not need to be overlooked when it comes to financing, because African women-owned businesses are the least funded across the globe. The numbers in terms of financing for women is actually abysmal. And so my desire, my dream is to create an ecosystem of wealthy women who can then look at another woman and finance that woman out of the wealth they have created, because they get it, they understand, and the money stays in the ecosystem, it stays on the continent, and we don't need to be statistics, which is continuing to happen, where, you know, African women-owned businesses are having to beg for money, even though they have really viable ideas, but the financing for them is very limited. So that is what the future looks like for me. The fund we're in the process of the legal frameworks for the fund. And in the next 2 to 3 years, we hope that we'll be able to build a hub on the continent where these women can come and just be themselves and grow wealth in a safe space.
Wow, that sounds incredible, incredible. I mean, I would like that to exist here in London as well. And we don't have, there's a lot of course, networking groups and co-working spaces, but having something where you can have a bit.
Sorry, Noreen, I'll just ask you to put your thing on mute for a sec. Thank you. I was just catching a bit of an echo. Thanks.
Yeah. So this concept of creating a village of women going through, you know, similar things, or even if they're not similar, but they're able to brainstorm and help support one another, because we know that it's by being together, and the concept of being mothers and the village, etc., is clearly something that is very close to my heart as well. And we struggle sometimes to recreate it here, even in London, you know, like we all kind of living in our own bubbles, and we need to burst that bubble. We need to listen to different people. We need to kind of mix ourselves and expose ourselves to the rest of the world, and kind of share ideas. And that's what I love about coaching and the work that we do in Purple Coach Conversations, that creating that community. So thank you for sharing that with us, that vision. That absolutely, I'm in love with it. And I would like to ask you, as you are an inspiration for us, who was your inspiration? Is there somebody that you admire, that you think we should be following?
You know, I always struggle with that question a bit. Who was my inspiration? When I was a child, my inspiration was actually my father.
Yeah.
And I admired how he carried himself, how he communicated, and just his values. And so when I grew up, I literally became like my father. So that was my role model, I think, because I saw him, I admired him, I wanted to be like him. But when it comes to in the public space, who is my role model? I actually don't have a single name that I can say this is the person that I want to be like. And I don't think I've ever had that, ever. And maybe I'm a bit weird, but I've never had that. But there is different characteristics of, or let me say skill sets or knowledge that different people exemplify. that I feel, oh, I really like that. I think I'm going to adopt that. Or I really like this outlook to life. I'm going to adopt that. So I've listened to teachers, particularly teachers. I seem to be drawn to people who teach a lot. So people like Miles Monroe, that is somebody whose teachings for me are quite impactful. I listened to, when I was young, I listened to Iyanla Vanzant a lot. And her ideologies at the time were really transformational in the phase of life that I was in. Oprah Winfrey has also been impactful because she has facilitated conversations with so many different people where I've picked out so many things from her. And on the continent of Africa, there is women who I feel have exemplified a strength that is unusual. People like Winnie Mandela, who as a female, as a wife, as a mother, went through things that are not spoken about as publicly as what her husband did, being the first Black president of South Africa. So I'm a mixed bag of people. I'd say that. I don't have one person I say, oh, this is the person. I'm constantly evolving and I'm open to learning. And I think I like that about myself, that I'm not, I could wake up tomorrow and say, oh, I think I'm going to try something different. And so, yeah, so my main role model was my father. But at this stage of my life, I've probably picked from so many different people.
And I love that. I think it's a fantastic way to grow and develop yourself, to have inspiration from so many different sources, because that's how we grow as human beings. And all of the names that you mentioned as well I'm actually fans of. So that was quite interesting. Noreen, just for the sake of time, I know we can keep talking to you forever, but just for the sake of time, do let us know how our listeners can get in touch with you.
I'm on social media. Noreen Makosewe. LinkedIn is my preferred platform. Instagram every now and again. They can log on to my company website, radicalleap.com, if they want to learn more about the work that we do, or my personal website, Noreen Makosewe, which brings together all the work, noreenmakosewe.com, which brings together all the work that I do in one space. So I'd love to connect. I'd love to work together. I'd love to have conversations, partnerships. I'm open to that. So yeah, thanks, Anne.
Thank you so much for being a part of Purple Coach Conversations, Noreen. We really, really appreciate your time. We really appreciate the work that you're doing as well. I think it takes a special kind of person to be so invested in the well-being and growth of other people to the depth that you are involved in. So we congratulate you on that, and congratulate your partners and everyone else that you've got working to make the transformation that you're making on the continent. As a fellow Kenyan, and I'm sure Tanya as well, as a fellow human, and anyone else listening, you're doing fantastic work, and thank you so much for that. It's a ripple effect that happens when you empower women, when you empower people in general, and especially those who do not have the ability to be empowered as often as others do. So thank you. I also want to thank everyone for listening in to Purple Coach Conversations. Please do check out our website as well, and do follow us on Facebook as well. And do reach out if you've got any questions, or if you'd like us to cover any different topics, or if you'd like to be a guest. Would love to have that conversation with you. So thank you, Noreen, and thank you everyone for listening in. Until next time, bye-bye.
Thanks, Anne, and thanks, Tanya.